Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about why I decided to sell my UltraSabers Archon v3.1. I've owned the 2.1 and the 3.1. I've sold them both. I like the Return of the Jedi Luke hilt that the Archon is based off of. I think it's a fantastic saber. It's probably one of the main reasons I like thin neck hilts a lot. I sold my 2.1 because the 3.1 came out, and the 3.1 was more what I wanted, an actual thin neck saber, not just kind of a fake thin neck like it was, because it wasn't truly a thin neck, much like the Hasbro toy release wasn't really a thin neck. But there are some problems I have with the UltraSabers version of the Return of the Jedi hilt. And I like the saber. I mentioned it when I did my comparison video between the UltraSabers Archon 3.1 and the Saberforge Exalted, which I still own actually. And long story short, you can check that video out if you want to, but long story short, the Exalted won. I thought the Exalted was a better hilt. But I mentioned in there I still liked the Archon 3.1. So why did I sell it? Well, there's multiple reasons. Primarily, the UltraSabers Archon 3.1 it's well built. I never had really a lot of trouble out of it except for one little issue, and I think that was more our fault. Excuse me. And less the manufacturer of the saber. The main reason, excuse me, the weather won't make up its mind. And the weathermen have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, so my sinuses are all over the place. The main reason I decided to sell it was, I believe when you buy a lightsaber replica, you're buying it really for one of three reasons. There are three main things. You know, there's some things, like some people just like having movie hilts. But for me, there's three main things you're going to do with it. One, you're going to display it. It's a showpiece. You want it sitting on a shelf or mounted on a wall. It's there to look nice. Two is for spinning, you know, actually picking it up, holding it, maybe spinning it around, twirling it. Three is for dueling, actual dueling with other people. Maybe soft dueling, maybe choreographed dueling, maybe heavy dueling like against a tree. I don't know, that's up to you. But for me, these are the three main reasons. Or cosplay, I guess cosplay would be the other one. So I guess 4 points. Cosplay, I guess, could be a fourth one. But for me, the UltraSabers Archon 3.1, for me, just for me personally, it fails on all four of these points. And I'll explain why. And we'll take them point by point. One, as a showpiece. You know, people are like, I've got to have a Return of the Jedi hilt on my wall. I've got to have a Return of the Jedi saber on my dresser. The problem with the UltraSabers Archon is that it's nowhere near screen accurate to the Return of the Jedi hilt, because it doesn't even have the activation box. It has an activation switch. The whole activation box is missing. It's not there. So for me, right there, boom, fails as a showpiece. Because if you want a real Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker hilt, there's plenty of other more screen accurate versions of it. There's the Saberforge Prodigal Son, the Vader's Vault Hero. Is that one the Hero, I think? Vader's Vault has one that's accurate. And then there's plenty of other people who do far more screen accurate versions of that saber. Some of them function, some of them are just props. My fellow reviewer, Sidious Sabers, actually owns several different replicas from several different companies of that saber, because much like myself, he really likes thin neck sabers, and I know Sidious could leave a list of plenty of other sabersmiths in the comments telling you where you can find more screen, I won't say better, but more screen accurate versions of these hilts. So, and they're probably going to cost more, but if you're going for a showpiece, then you need something that looks close to screen accurate, in my opinion. So, and even the UltraSabers Archon 3.1, if you get like sound, just their premium sound, you're still going to pay over $300 for it. So why not spend the extra money and get one with the activation box that looks more accurate? I really like Saberforge's new Prodigal Son. Their Mark 6 looks really good. It even has buttons on the activation box. So when it comes to showpiece, I don't think the UltraSabers Archon works because of that. Two, spinning. This one is more subjective. This one is more me personally. Thin neck sabers, like I'll use the Exalted as the example since I sold the Archon. I don't have it. I actually sold it to a friend of mine. I'll touch on that later. Thin neck sabers have to have a special type of blade that won't work on other sabers. Basically, the main difference is the film inside the blade is not glued down like it is in a standard blade, and it's not glued in, so it slots in better. The problem with a thin neck saber is that you have to have a heavy grade blade. And if y'all have ever seen, yes, I'm from the South, you can tell. If you've ever heard me talk in some of my other videos, I do not like heavy grade blades. I prefer a mid-grade blade. The main difference between a mid-grade blade and a heavy-grade blade is that the heavy-grade blade is twice as thick, which, of course, means it's twice the weight. And the weight is going to change the balance of the saber and the way it handles considerably. I'll touch on more on that when I get to point 3. But you have to have a heavy-grade blade for a thin-neck saber, which actually I'll go ahead and touch on that now. That increases the weight of it, which really throws off its balance and makes it harder for me to spin. So I'm not very comfortable twirling around a heavy grade blade. I can, and I have, but it's never as comfortable for me as a mid-grade blade. That's my problem I have with Saberforge, is all of their blades are heavy grade blades, so even my Saberforge hilts, besides my thin neck ones, my non-thin neck hilts, I tend to keep UltraSabers blades in, like my Saberforge Prodigy, my Saberforge Disciple. I keep UltraSabers mid-grade blades in those because they're much easier to use and spin and duel with. So for me, because I'm a smaller guy, I'm about 5'5" and a half, and I weigh anywhere between 130 to 140 pounds. And for me, it's a lot harder to use a saber effectively with a heavier blade. I prefer a mid-grade blade. Now, for someone who's more an average male size, average male height, average male arms, people who have arms that are bigger than my legs, that might not be an issue. So that's purely subjective for me, being a smaller person, that the Archon fails for spinning because I have to use a heavy grade blade, which I don't like. Point 3, dueling. Same problem. Well, one of the same problems. If I duel, I have to use a heavy grade blade. This slows me down. I'm not as quick when I duel. I'm not as accurate when I duel. You'll notice in any of our messing around with sabers videos, I don't use a thin neck saber. The only person who uses a thin neck saber is Ian. He uses the Archon a lot, actually. Matter of fact, it's him I sold the Archon to. He uses the Archon in some of the videos, and even he knows that it's a little harder for him to use it properly because the blade's a little heavier and gives him a little more trouble. Me being smaller than him, it gives me even more trouble. So it fails for dueling. I can't duel with it properly because of that blade. And also another point is a thin neck saber runs the risk of damaging the neck because it's so thin. If you duel with it and you're not careful, you can damage the neck. As I pointed out in my other video, the dangers of dueling with a thin neck saber. And in that video, I went over using the Archon as an example of where I damaged it. On my Archon, you can see where it had bent slightly, and I had to take it over my knee and bend it back. Because we'd gotten carried away with it. Now, that's not to say you can't duel with the Archon. If you're careful, you can duel with the Archon, because we dueled with the Archon several times without a problem. It was just that last dueling session, and I've noticed all of our dueling sessions, we seem to get progressively more and more aggressive, except Eric, who's always aggressive. And I think we just got a little carried away, and Ian was using it, and it bent slightly. And I bent it back. It wasn't a big deal. Neither of us minded it. He'd already planned on buying it in one of my other sabers. Anyway. And then point 4, cosplay. Which I guess if you're cosplaying and you're not, it doesn't have to be screen accurate, the Archon's fine. But again, if you're going for more like a Luke Skywalker outfit and you want screen accuracy, then you're better off getting a more screen accurate hilt. So for all 4 of those reasons, I ended up selling the Archon. I'm getting more and more picky about what I want in my selection. I actually sold off a few sabers. I sold Ian 2 of them, and I'll discuss one of those in another video because it's a higher end saber as well. And then I sold my best friend 4 of the more basic hilts, like a Sentinel, a Dominic's V3, a Dominic's V4, and one other one. But that's more due to the fact he has 4 children, and they like my lightsabers. So they all had, 2 of them had birthdays coming up, and one of the other boys also wanted one, and then Shane, I got one for Shane. So my best friend's name is Shane. Got one for him as well, so he could duel with the boys. His oldest is a girl, but he has 3 boys. So they all have lightsabers they can duel with together. I talk really fast. I should have been an auctioneer. But because of all of those things, and the fact that the Archon, it didn't serve any function to me. I was always bothered by the fact it didn't have the activation box. It made it, not having the activation box made it easier to hold, so I just wanted to pick it up, cut it on, swing it a few times. That was fine, because that activation box on a more screen accurate saber is very cumbersome and gets in the way, I'm sure. But it didn't work, because as a showpiece it didn't work. It wasn't screen accurate, and that bothered me. I couldn't spin it because of the heavy grade blade it required. I couldn't duel with it for the same reason, plus the danger to the neck. And then I don't ever really cosplay as Star Wars, and I still would have wanted a more screen accurate hilt. And I probably would have used one of my smaller sabers like my Prodigy or Prophecy. Anyway, so I didn't... While I think it's a nice saber, it's nothing against UltraSabers. There's nothing wrong with the way it was made. UltraSabers is a great company. I enjoy their hilts. It didn't serve any function. Plus, I knew I could get some money for it. I gave Ian a pretty good deal on it. Plus, selling Ian it and one of my other sabers helped me sweeten the deal where I was selling him some Transformers. I was selling him 3 of my 3 Fans Toys Insecticons, which I think altogether cost me about $250, but they don't make them anymore, so they go on eBay for like $600 now. So I sold them to him for about $575 because he knew they were in good shape. I never even transformed them. And since I was kind of taking it to him on those, I figured I'd give him a good deal on the sabers to help sweeten the deal. And he's happy. He was really happy with the purchase. I was really happy. I put it toward getting a bill paid. I'll have my student loan paid off in February. I'm quite excited about that. But yeah, that was the main reason I sold it. It's not that I didn't like it as much as I didn't have a reason to own it, if that makes sense. And it's the same thing with the other saber I sold Ian that I need to do a video on. It didn't fit in my collection. I didn't really have a use for it. I never used them. I have my one thin neck saber that I really like. That's kind of Return of the Jedi style, but still its own thing, and that's my Exalted. Which I also I don't really keep a blade in. It's kind of my one saber I just keep without the blade sitting on the shelf because it looks good. A couple other things about UltraSabers. I've had people asking me what I want next from UltraSabers. What am I looking at from UltraSabers? Do I care for their V5 line? The new V5 sabers, I do not. Don't get me wrong, I haven't had any of them in hand, and if I held one in my hands, it could easily change my mind. You never really know until you hold a saber what you think of it, as I mentioned in my recent Bellicose re-review. But just coming out of the gate at pictures, the V5 line doesn't do a lot for me. What I am looking at right now, or they have 2 sabers right now I want to pick up. They're both sabers I owned before and would like to get back again. One is their Manticore. I like their Manticore. It has a phenomenal emitter. Probably just need a stunt one. It's something, I like the way it looks, so I'd like to have it hanging on the wall. And then the damage to the Archon in our last dueling session has pretty much convinced me, Ian, and Eric that we really just need to pick one good beater saber each, and that's just kind of the saber we duel with. I'm thinking about maybe picking up an Eon V2 because I love the Eon V2. It's a comfortable hilt. And using that as my dueling saber. I'll probably get it in either the Arctic Blue or the Violet Amethyst. I haven't made up my mind yet, with a AV switch on it. I don't like their standard switch. That's the one thing. UltraSabers, if you're watching this, stop doing the guarded switches. They're trash. Absolute trash. And I really wish y'all would stop sending out mystery boxes and raffle prizes with them, because you can get this phenomenal, great saber, a Bellicose, a Prophecy, fantastic looking silver saber, and it's got this dinky plastic black standard switch on it that looks terrible, ruins the entire look of the saber. I like the fact with the V5 line that UltraSabers, they've made the AV switches standard on those. They need to make the AV switches standard across the board, get rid of the guarded switch completely, because there's a lot of people out there who are purchasing their first saber and they're not doing their proper research and they're saving a few bucks, so they're just getting the standard switch, and it's junk. I do not like it. I think it ruins the look of the saber. So I would encourage them, Emery, if you watch this video, I would encourage you just to make the AV switches standard across the board. Anyway, I just wanted to do a video on that, kind of talk about the Archon and my reasons for selling it. It is a good saber. It is well made. I've never had an UltraSabers that has been made badly, and they are very good at what they do. And sometime soon I'll do another video talking about the other saber that I sold to Ian and the reason why I did that. Anyway, this is Prowl 1701. Don't forget to click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, check out my other channel, Another Sci-Fi Guy, where I review different sci-fi stuff. We talk about Doctor Who, Babylon 5. We talk about video game stuff. I recently did some unboxings for my Mega Man IM 8-bit packaging, which I got the rare glow-in-the-dark, only 1,000 made Mega Man 2 cart. And most importantly, as always, thank you for watching.